This episode of the Fiction Writers Podcast is brought to you by How to Write a Novel That Sells. Do you dream of writing a best-selling fiction novel? With the right tools, you could get there sooner than you think. Visit www.howtowriteanovelthatsells.com and unlock the secrets to writing compelling fiction taught by international best-selling author Lana McAra. Welcome to the Fiction Writers Podcast with Lana McAra, where you will discover tips, tricks, and ideas for fiction that is #unputdownable. Here you'll find new energy, new perspectives, new resources, and new ideas that will spark your creativity into a blaze of brilliance. It's easier than you think. Be sure you visit our website at www.fictionwriterspodcast.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now, get out your notebook, tune in, and let's get started.
Hello, and welcome to the Fiction Writers Podcast, tips, tricks, and ideas for fiction that is #unputdownable. Today, I am so excited to talk to Christopher Greyson. He is got so much going on, and I was looking at his bio this morning, and I'm just like, wow, we got a lot to talk about. We got to cram it all in, Chris. Christopher Greyson's father died when he was a newborn. He was the youngest of 6 children raised by a single mother, and then went through a lot of health challenges and ended up in addiction. So coming through all of that, he still turned his life around. What a story. For less than $100, Christopher published his first novel, which was called Girl Jacked. And then with prayer, dedication, sweat, tears, boy, don't we know all that, Christopher became an award-winning Wall Street Journal best-selling author of mystery, action, and thriller novels. He's recognized as one of the top 100 Kindle authors of all time. His acclaimed novels have now sold over 3.5 million ebooks, print, and audiobooks. He's an accomplished speaker, actor, and prolific storyteller, and the author of over 20 novels, ranging from pulse-pounding thrillers to sweet, cozy mysteries. Chris, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's my delight. I found you in a list somewhere, and I was like, oh, this guy. So I'm really happy to have you here. So you started writing novels as a favor, but when you did a favor for your wife. Tell us that story. That is so interesting.
I did. I actually have to rewind back to college when you talked about overcoming addiction. I wrote my first book in college. I was a theater major, and that's all I wanted to do. I went to Emerson College Youth Theater. I was doing 4 plays a year. I went to Bridgewater State University, and I was going to be an actor. And I had just started dancing a few years prior, fell in love with it. I wasn't Baryshnikov, but I absolutely fell in love with it. And I blew out my knee to the point where I broke all 4 ligaments in my knee. My dance career was over. I actually got accepted to a world dance tour, and I got the acceptance letter when I was in the hospital, and knowing my career was over. So being a creative, I didn't want to be limited. But one thing I didn't realize until I wrote The Girl Who Lived is I re-triggered my addiction when I was in the hospital because of the morphine. I got addicted to morphine, and then I self-medicated with alcohol once I got out. And then I spiraled through 5 drug rehabs. But before the 5 drug rehabs when I was writing, I wrote the book Pure of Heart. And back then, that's when dinosaurs roamed the earth, and it was the land of the traditional publishing. And I sent it to one publishing company, and they said, we love it. But it's not right for us. Can we send it to somebody else? And I thought, fantastic. It didn't stink, because I just winged it and didn't really know what I was doing, just loved reading and storytelling. And they sent it off to another publishing house. And I honestly don't know what happened after that, because I went back into addiction. And so then after meeting my wife, who helped me through my addiction, she's just absolutely fabulous. Years later, she was interested in writing. And she said, well, you wrote a book. Will you help me? And I said, oh, I don't want to mess up your book. because I couldn't believe doing that. I mean, that's really, when you talk about somebody putting all that effort into something, and I didn't want to mess it up. So I said, I don't want to, there's a lot of legacy with that first book, Pure of Heart. I don't know how it is. I'll just write another one. And I did. I love mysteries and I love police procedurals. So followed along with that. And the minute I started it, I fell in love, absolutely in love with doing it. And I said, where has this been? And two, I realized that I did listen to a lot of people that were faith quenchers, that were, down on the dream. I mean, I had been used to it in acting, that with you'll never be an actor, you'll never make it, you have to be responsible. And they had shifted to writing, and I just took that right away. You'll never be an author, you'll never be. So I had completely shelved any dreams of that. But then Girl Jacked, why not to critical acclaim, it people loved it, and they, were writing to me, and I loved doing it, most importantly. And so I kept at it and started to hone my craft, and it was just a fire inside me. And I thought, I could do this. I could write. And they say, like, I bought a hat in the airport. Life is good. One of those hats, and their expression is, do what you love and love what you do. And you hear all those quotes like, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And I went, I want that. I want that so badly. And I had my daughter, she'd walk me up to the car every day and she'd pray with me and she'd say, someday you're going to be a writer. Believe it. You'll be. And she just wrote her first book, her first children's book. So I'll give her a plug. So that's the story of writing my first book. And I tell everybody, you can do it. I mean, I absolutely loved reading, but as far as a background, I'm the guy that got kicked out of English class all the time. So it was just, it's such a fantastic experience.
Yes. Yeah. So something about it that is so fulfilling when you get that book in your hand. For me, when my first book came from the publisher, and I was in the dinosaur days like you, Chris. You either get traditional or you get nothing. Yeah. So getting that first book in your hand is just the most incredible experience. It was so life-changing for me to see my work with a cover in print.
It is. It's truly unbelievable. And I still get a kick every time I see it. I mean, Amazon just changed how they do the hardcovers, and they, get the printed on hardbacks that you get. And, of course, when you put out a new release, you get it and you hold it. And there's something I could stay in a library all day long, a bookstore all day long. And I always have the magical experiences going in there. Like, even now when I write a book, I make sure I bring it in to a bookstore, bring it into the library. I put it on the shelf to see how it looks. Sometimes I do that like undercover thing where I have it on the shelf and I see if people stop and look at it and pick it up. And it was one of the ways that I knew that The Girl Who Lived was a spectacular cover. I can't say enough about that one, but that people were picking it up. And then when I went to go leave the store, the clerk said, you have to pay for that. And I'm like, oh no, it's my book. And like, no, you have to pay for it. Then it becomes your book. I'm like, no, you don't understand. I wrote it. It's mine. And we had a laugh about it. But then I knew, I'm like, oh, this looks good. And it went on to a self-press. Ingram Sparks uses it for handing it out as a sample. So that was one of the things that I went, okay, this has to be great. I've got a little bit of self-esteem issues. So sometimes I go, I hope it's good, because you never know. You never know what it's going to be.
Yes, you never know. Yep. So tell us a little bit about your publishing journey. So you started out, you said you paid less than $100 for your first book. What was that story?
I did. Well, what happens with that is that I researched everything. Once I started getting looking into it besides one on the writing end, because you have the whole journey of actually writing the book. So I went out, I'm a voracious reader and read a lot of James Scott Bell, who has a great deal of writing advice, to David, I always mess up his name, Gragnaw, I believe. He's Scottish. He has a great deal of publishing advice. Let's get visible. Let's get digital. And Joe Conrath, he was one of the first people as a traditionally published author. He was one of the first that went to Amazon and became an independent author, and they really lifted him up. And I sought out his advice, and there were so many people on the internet that would help you and guide you. And there were a lot of sharks that would try to eat you along the way.
Yes.
You had to be careful, that would come alongside you or just say, oh, just give us the money. And I also come from a computer background, but also a poor background. And I can't say enough nice things about my mother. So my mother was always like, go to the library, get a book, figure out how to do it. And she was big on independence and learning to do it yourself. And I am too, because even now when you know how something is supposed to be done, then you're not going to be as likely to be ripped off. So in that, I found that you need an editor, and I found an editor. And there are really two ways to do anything. One is to break out the money hose, which I didn't have. Mm-hmm. And the second one is to do it yourself in the slow and steady approach. But there are also people out there, like there are a lot of people out there, and I know everybody suggests, oh, you have to find a professional editor, you have to find a proofreader, but then what I did was find a lot of people that were capable of proofreading. And instead of just one person, I used 10 to cover my bases. I did spend the money for the editor. That's where the $100 went. And that's all I spent and all I had. And this guy cut me, great, wonderful man, cut me a great deal on his editing services in order to edit the book. I since went on, because I rewrote it a number of times as I learned, and it was the first book in the series. So I wanted it to be very powerful. So I had it re-edited a number of times. And two is I had new editors and to test them out. And I don't like leaving anything, sometimes like leaving anything alone. That's where I really have to walk away from some of my earlier books. But I just wrapped all that knowledge. And you do have to, as an independent, wear so many hats, where you have to learn the publishing, learn the marketing, learn these different skill sets. And at the same time, I put out, I did apply to publishing companies, and I heard crickets. So I was partially raised by my grandfather, who was born in 1898. So I grew up watching a lot of John Wayne movies and the Bowery Boys, James Cagney. So when somebody says, no, talk to the hand, I kind of say, I'll do it my way. And do it on my own. So there were a lot of things where I said, I'll do it on my own. And since then, since I've had the independent success, I've turned down a lot of offers in very nice ways from well-meaning publishing companies where we talked. And I just decided that right now it was best if I continue publishing independently. There's still I think, a stigma to it. It's getting far less being an independent publisher, but there is still a bit of a stigma. Like I remember going to a book consortium of authors, and it was a 4-day event. And I sat down at the table, and there were a number of people there, and they asked me, are you professionally published, traditionally published? And I said, no. And they turned their back at me and started talking amongst themselves. And then one of them turned and said, well, you have an agent. And I'm, no. And they again turned around. And then the keynote speaker was Joe Conrath. And he pointed me out and said, hey, Chris, stand up. And he's like, this is Christopher Greyson. He's crushing it right now. And I did. I wanted to be like, how do you like me now? But I didn't do that. And because I don't think that people should be, respecters of people. There are so many wonderful books out there. And who knows? It's kind of like, writing songs. Who knows when they're going to hit, why they're going to hit, what time, that song is right for its echo. I mean, it's like an artist. There are so many authors that don't hit it big until after their death. I mean, there are a number of them, their works weren't even known. And so I try to encourage everybody I meet and I talk to, and I belong to a number of different writer groups. So.
Mm-hmm. This is so interesting to me because I teach a writing course at the local library, and most of the women that come, well, men and women that come, are independently published. And some of them have several, I'm talking 7, 8 books that they just keep rolling them out. And there are a couple of journalists who are trained journalists, but they're independently publishing their books, and they would have it no other way. There's a lawyer in the Sisters in Crime group. I'm the president of Sisters in Crime locally. And she also independent, and her books are thick. They're major works here. She's a lawyer, and she insists that she wants to stay in control. And I was traditionally published, and I can tell you that they take a lot of control when you go with a publisher. They dictate some things, and they'll tell you to change the plot, and they'll tell you, what they want. Like you are an employee almost, although not creative.
And I've heard that in some real scary stories, like another author friend of mine, he had a series and the publishing company went bankrupt. And so when it went under, his series got stuck. What do you do? What do you do if you have 5 books? Excuse me, I think my voice went, what do you do? I got scared. He has 5 books. And who's going to grab the 6th book in a series where they have no control over the first 5? Another author I know got a deal. It was independent published. And they said, oh, we don't like that book. Write a different one. When he handed the manuscript, the whole thing. And he's like, oh, I'll just put it out on my own. And they're like, nope, you owe us first. And it was a way he kind of went with the mafia. And that's why I encourage so many people, because they're still out there, sometimes for my beta readers, because I never want people to be just a yes person. And so now I do have fans, and they're unbelievable. They're the most helpful people in the world. I hack my beta list, but I also want to make sure that, just in case somebody that either hasn't read any of the other books can pick it up, because I want it to be standalone. And sometimes when I go under my own name and my secret identity, the sharks can come out, and people are like, I'll come alongside you and write this book. And I'm like, that book's done. I don't know what but the offer is like Mr. Potter, and, it's a wonderful life where, after you shake their hand, you want to go take a shower. So I do encourage everybody to also be very careful. But I tip my hat to your students, and I saw that about you, and the whole coaching thing is so wonderful in giving back and bringing people forward and helping pull people forward. I have a soft spot. Both of my parents are teachers, so I have a soft spot for teachers. And it's a wonderful gift that we've been given, that we don't have those gatekeepers. Because if you think about it now, there aren't the people that just say, no, this won't go out there. You can take your creative energy and you can put it out there. And I'm a firm believer, you're not going to agree with everything anybody says, but everybody has the right to, say it. And there are so many stories that wouldn't get out, and say only a few people, like it. Well, you've just made those few people very happy.
Yes, exactly. And a new flavor that has come up and I've run into is AI, where these houses will put your book through the AI machine, and then they'll come back and tell you how to, quote unquote, fix it to satisfy the AI parameters. My Christie winner, I submitted it to a new publisher. My first publisher went out of business.
Mm-hmm.
And I submitted it to a new publisher. They put it back into the AI, and they came back and said, there's too much dialogue in this book. And I said, it won the Christie Award. I'm not going to rewrite. I'm not changing a word of that book. If you don't want it, let me know, because I'm not going to change it. It won the Christie Award.
I know it's scary. It really is, because then people start. It's this weird dystopian future that I do not like, and you shouldn't try to do it. It's almost like in the Brady Bunch, dating myself, but Greg Brady fit the suit, and that's why he became a singer. And they didn't care what he sounded like as long as he fit the suit. And it's just this falsification. Like I struggled when I first started writing in trying to do because I can write like this. I could be like, the coffee was so thick, the flies' footsteps puckered the lair like the snows of the Imajaro, And I'm like, it's not me. It isn't. I usually do very few descriptions, just enough so you can paint your own picture. But for me, a lot of things boil down to either, like a country song. There's a song, I think it's Sawyer Brown, but he says, some girls don't like boys like me, but some girls do. And it's like people like vanilla ice cream. They like chocolate ice cream. If you don't like, the way I write, and you're looking for these more literary, great, knock yourself out. There's so many out there. That's why you have samples. That's why, like when I go, people come to my website, I give them 2 free reader magnets, they're called, so they can come, they can look, and they can say, because there are plenty of people that are like, oh, that's not my genre. That's not my thing. But the AI it's really scary, because and two, people don't really think it through, like how AI goes, and it's totally forgets about copyright, and it scrapes all these people's work, their blood, sweat, careers, their creativity. So you could say, write me a book like Stephen King. I'm sure Stephen King's not that happy to go, wait a second, because the only reason it can write a book like Stephen King is because the internet has all of Stephen King's material.
Right.
And it's really, I'm worried about the way it's going to hurt creativity across the boards. Like right now, Google has a way of doing it where it goes out there, it collects all this information, and now you don't leave the Google page to get the answer. So instead of people going to your website, you don't get any reward for all of the material that you've done.
Mm.
So it's this weird collective thing that is, but I try to roll with everything, and I'm like, you know what? I think this is a case where actually John Henry wins the battle of the machine, because you can't. I've seen the AI stuff. I've played around with, like, as a former computer programmer. I've played around with it, and I remember, and not beating on self-driving cars, but I'm like, I hope my friends didn't program them. Or if I get in a plane and somebody goes, oh, it'll automatically. And don't get me wrong. I think there are some things that the computer is absolutely fantastic for. But the gift and the spark of creativity, you're not going to take it out of the brain.
Yes, it's not like homogenized. Everyone is going to have to write the same amount of dialogue versus description versus action. So it's homogenized, and that just takes away our individuality to be ourselves.
It does. And there's a lot that, there's a big attack right now, sometimes too, when you make characters for example, if I make a character who has a bad personality trait, sometimes I get blowback. And I'm like, no, I've created a bad character. It's not what I'm thinking. It goes back to my acting days. I remember a friend of mine, he got on TV to play a drug dealer. And it was this little local production where he was on TV. And an old man chased him into a store and had him call the police. And he's like, I'm not really a drug dealer. So you do get that. So you often get it from all sides. And I think that's why we just have to be so thick-skinned. And it's tough because we're creatives. So usually creatives, I'm a crier. I might not look like it, but I'll go to like movies. I'll watch like Up, and I'll be like, oh, his wife, and I'll be a crier. But then we have to I've now come to the point where I can actually look at reviews. And I can see my reviews because sometimes I go, oh, okay, well, this is an area I need to improve. This is an area. And I find a lot of times that even the people that give you advice would never take that same advice, though. Like I have editors. Usually I use a different editor for the first round and the second round, which I know is unique. But I found that an editor who can make my whole page turn red. I mean, my whole page, they will make, they'll occasionally go all over it. Well, it just feels like that, doesn't it? Mm. And then if I don't take two little things, they get all upset. And I'm like, wait a minute. You can dish it out, but you can't take it as the saying goes.
When you're editing the editor.
And it'll sometimes they don't know or they don't get it. And usually it's the worst if they get off on something, if they miss like a clue. Because sometimes I do like to do mysteries where people could figure them out. I want them, I can't stand it when I can't figure out a mystery. Like I was wrapped into a movie and it was exceptional. The acting was fabulous. The cinematography was fabulous. The dialogue popped. Everything was great. It was a mystery until the end. The killer was revealed and you've never seen him before. And they did that.
Oh.
And that's like the big no-no.
Yeah.
And I tell you, I almost pulled an Elvis and shot the TV.
Oh.
I was so mad. You would need a long 7-second delay. You would probably need a minute and a half delay if he had been doing, let's look, one of those live watching. So with doing that, and that's one of the reasons that I have to use the beta readers so they catch it and to make sure that they catch it. Because if they don't catch a clue, or if the clue's a little bit obvious, but sometimes I go and it's more of a thriller. So they know. So I'm like, yeah, you know who the killer is. I have the guy come out and not twirl the mustache, but he gives the killer speech. So it's him. I forget where we are. I'm sorry. I tend to ramble.
I'm a mystery writer too. And I love fooling people with clues at the beginning of the book. I'm giving a little bit of my secrets here, but clues at the beginning of the book. And then you get these little breadcrumbs through, but at the end, it's a shocker. And my goal is to have them go back and read it again, and then say, "Oh, there it was. There's where the clue was. I totally missed it." That's my goal, because I love fooling them till the end. They're like, "Oh, I didn't see it. I should have seen it."
I love that. I'm about to get back to a fan who just absolutely made my day. And he said, whenever your book comes out, the next day I have to call in sick to work. Because I'm like, yes.
Yeah, that's high praise. That is high praise for sure.
Yeah. So yeah. I just absolutely delight in that. But there's the whole, the knack of trying to figure that out. But that's half the fun. Because for me, it's like doing a puzzle, and it's not work. Like the writing portion of it, I struggle with, I force myself to take Sunday off and to go, nope, I'm going to relax. I'm not going to work, because I usually wake up at like 4:30 in the morning. I wear many hats, and don't get me wrong, I take a nap too. I'm a believer in a nap. So but it's the writing is just something I absolutely just adore. Marketing, not so much, but the writing is just great. I like the graphics, and I'm trying to get better at the marketing and make it fun.
Yes, well, 3.5 million copies, so that's not shabby by any stretch. That is awesome. Yeah, that's fabulous.
I'm so blessed. One, my wife had like such a wonderful gift for marketing. She hurt her back, so I had to step back. from it. So that's why it's a little scary, because now it's on me.
Mhm.
And like I said, it's not my gift, but I've got I love my fans. I love my fan base, and I really try to be so respectful of their time, because I can't, I can't believe it. I am so appreciative. You have so many different things that you can do now. You could, play Angry Birds on your phone, to binge watch Netflix, to free TV shows. And now they have TV shows all the way back since there was TV that you can
Wow.
pull it up. So it's, everything's added to it. And yet people are picking up my book. So I want to give them the best product I can do. And again, it's fun,
Yeah.
I mean, like, even right before I came on, I had a new plot point that I went, oh, and I had to come on, jump in and write for a little bit, and I'll go back to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I have sticky notes all over my wall, where I put ideas because I want to look at it as I walk by. And then my mind starts to work on that. If I catch, my eye catches some point or whatever, if I do it in the computer, it's gone. I'm not seeing it, but if it's on the wall, I'm gonna see that multiple times a day, and it helps me.
Yeah, I have two huge whiteboards right to my left here. And I used to have, when I had it I still have them going for different things. And that way, I think it's great, because then I don't suffer from writer's block. 'Cause if I get stumped on something, and sometimes something needs to get, really worked on and thought through. And I'll go mow the lawn, I'll go for a walk, I'll do stuff. And only occasionally has it been days, but this way I can put it down and work on something else, and then come back and try to think of the idea. Like, I remember once I was doing I have a series about Kiku, who's a Japanese Yakuza assassin, and I just absolutely love. And it's just a very freeing thing. And she was riding a snowmobile, and this person fell in the water, and Jimmy. And so if you go fast enough on a snowmobile, you can stay up on the water and also on the ice. So she's going to throw him a rope. And then I remembered he has gloves on, like these. I'm like, he's never going to be able to hold on to just a rope. And I couldn't. And then finally, I'm like, oh, it looks like Jimmy's dead. Way to get him off of this. And I was in a coffee shop, and this guy comes in with a motorcycle helmet on, and he grabs it by the mouth guard, the chin guard. And I jump up and run over to him, like, can I see your motorcycle helmet for a second? And he's like, what? And then I saw that she could take the helmet off, stick it against the handlebar, put the rope through the chin guard, take a quick knot, and kick it off, and it ends up breaking the poor guy's nose when it gets just the helmet, but he can hold on to the helmet. And I'm like, that works. And so there's a lot of moments like that, but those are the moments that I absolutely I love. They raise quite a few eyebrows, because, like, I have a friend with moving to Tennessee, and I don't normally go around and tell people what I do. And I have a friend, and I kept on asking him, because I knew he was an avid hunter. So I'm doing this new, like, dystopian thriller about, like, an EMP goes off in the United States, and we don't know if it's an EMP. It's called The Dark. They lose all power. And the Amish are set. They didn't even know it happened. So everybody loses all power. And so I'm asking him, I said, can you tell the difference, like, if you came across a puddle of blood on the ground, between deer blood and human blood? And he's thinking about it. And then finally he said, can I ask why you're asking me all these questions? And I'm like, did I not tell you I'm a writer? And he's like, no. I'm like, all right, before you call the police. And so that was neat. But I think being a bit of an extrovert helps in the writing journey too. And because too, there's so many people that you can rely on and go and ask questions, regarding, anything. Like, I moved to this town, and they have a Citizens Academy, it's called, where you can do ride-alongs with the police, which I recommend anybody doing. It was a 9-week program, 6 or 9 week program. I did it with my wife. It was fabulous. We went to the prisons. I mean, I don't know how much a lot of people will find out about that is, but you go to the prisons, the court systems, you do ride-alongs, you get to see the SWAT team, you get to see what the police go through. And it was just absolutely amazing. And I got to meet so many men and women that now I can rely on and say, hey, what about this? Or what about that? And, how do these go? For example, like when we were talking about how, it's a different changing world, I try not to skirt issues. So like I have a friend of mine who's a neighbor he's a black police officer with 2 teenage sons. And so I said, I'm really curious how in this world right now it is, what your opinion is. And I said, I'm sure you're getting inundated. He's like, no one's asked me. No one's asked me what it's like, 1, being a black police officer, and then 2, being a black father of 2 teenage sons and, worrying about what happens if they get pulled over. And I think it's our job as writers, I'm like, I wasn't putting it through any lens or I'm just telling what he feels. But boy, that's when you get the powerful sparks, when you just go, okay, you're telling somebody else's story. So
yes, that is amazing. I think that curiosity of how it works and how people have perspectives, and that's what makes us writers, really, because we love digging into all those little details. Yeah. So tell us about the Wall Street Journal. I'm very eager to hear that story. Wall Street Journal.
Oh, I was absolutely floored from the one little lie. It was one of the first ones that are deciding about wide, not wide, that whole thing. It's a prequel to the Jack series. So when I launched it, it's one of the reasons that I think it went so big and so powerful. But again, the difference between that and, say, The Girl Who Lived, why that ended up on the Wall Street Journal chart, for sales, they do have their own algorithm. Mm-hmm. So that I have that nobody knows or has any control of. So I was delighted, it happened. But like when you look at The Girl Who Lived, it actually hit number 1 on Amazon. It was the number 1 selling book. It stayed in the top 50 for months. But it never hit, I think I should have gone on the New York Times list for that one, but it is what it is. And so, for whatever reasons, I think, and then, it does all of those things. Book awards, like the Christie Awards, they do open up so many doors. Mm-hmm. I personally don't like it that they open up so many doors. Well, in a way, I like it. I don't like it. Because you can see it. If something is successful, people want a part of it. Like if you're driving around and there's a restaurant and nobody's in it, you're hesitant to go in. Mm-hmm. But if it's packed, you're like, hey, I want to go try it out. But like, for example, I was looking for a new cover designer once, and I had sent out all of these requests and nobody responded. Not one. I didn't get one response. So my wife said, "Will you do me a favor and just put Wall Street Journal best-selling author in in your signature?" Well, I feel like I'm bragging or boasting, but I did it, and everybody got back to me. Yeah, and I'm like, "Wow, okay." Because I would get back to. I said I grew up, with my mom being a elementary school Sunday teacher and Sunday school teacher, and it's right that I don't show favoritism for anybody for anything. I mean, what really is the big difference between flying the space shuttle, to flying the space shuttle to sweeping the floor? It's not like this thing. So I try to treat everybody with respect. And so, I can see some people when you do make judgment calls and you do look at things. And so I'm extremely honored by it and flattered, and like I said, I'm still blown away, but I'm the type of person where I'm like, I can't believe I wrote that. I'll go back and read it. Oh, I really like that. And, but I know what you mean. There's so many, people that have helped me along the way. Like we've talked about teachers and you being a coach. I remember I had a teacher in elementary school and his name was Arthur Collins. He actually marched with Martin Luther King and he would read from memory. He would recite The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. And this man's voice, his presence, everything about it, he was so eloquent, and it left such an impression, on me. And he tried to instill that, that love of reading too. And then I think about all the drama teachers that poured into me, and this was, it was a different day and age. So when I was 16, I was an alcoholic that was doing drugs and getting arrested. I'm only 16, and I still had teachers instead of throwing me to the curb. Go, maybe we could channel them some way, and they did. And that theater has helped me so much in writing because you can put yourself into the characters. I can walk in their mindset and their shoes. I love improv. And I find I watch a lot of my books. I think that's one of the things I love when people say it could be a movie. And I say, hey, write it like that, like a few of the books. And I've been very blessed now is that I'm in talks for movie scripts and screenplays and television shows. And they might not go anywhere. Like I'm so laid back, I'm horizontal. I'm like, if it works, great. If it doesn't, great. So I wrote a couple of screenplays recently because I was requested to by some people, and my writing improved so much in looking at trying to distill a book down to 2 hours for a movie. That was hard. Or to expand it and break it up into a television show. But again, it's like the puzzle. It's the what if games. I absolutely love that. And it's funny how many things you've been prepped for by life. Like I used to do it with my wife going back to when we were dating, and about you go to a movie and we'd rewrite it to go, okay, I know a lot of people give the new Star Wars a hard time, but like what I would have done when you had that Rey, she grew up taking that ship apart and taking pieces and selling it, why they didn't use that to, when she gets on a ship that's the same ship, to use all her knowledge that she had. I mean, she could have brought the whole thing down that way and done all these. So we'll rewrite the movies. And then I have to be, when I'm looking at a project, I have to be, okay, I don't want to be that guy. And I'm sorry for somebody from Star Wars sees this. Big fan. I hate that. I usually don't use any names or projects when I criticize something because so many people work so hard, like especially movies where you see the names go by. There's a billion people working on movies, which is just one side gripe that I do have is when one actor, I long for the days when the actors kept their mouth shut because you have so many people working on a movie. And you have one person say one stupid thing, and then people go, oh, I don't want to watch the movie. And I'm like, wait a minute, what about all the other people that worked on the movie and the writers and the and then too, I remember there are some stories of writers, like the person that wrote Forrest Gump, Tom Hanks gave him money because he didn't make any money from the movie.
Wow.
Yeah, because they did this. And it's, I think, shenanigans, because they bundled the movie in with a bunch of movies. And I'm a financial moron, so don't, look up what I'm saying. But they bundled the movie in with a bunch of movies and then said it didn't make money because all of those movies didn't make money.
Oh, I see.
And his deal, so sometimes you have those great deals like, Alec Guinness on Star Wars, again, big Star Wars fan. He actually got, I think, 2% of the royalty or 2.2%. So he was set.
Yeah.
He was absolutely set. And then you have these other people like that poor man, which, you think it's going to be so successful and you're not making anything.
Yeah.
So
you just never know. You never know. And in the book world, the same. You just don't know. So, wow, this has been so great. This conversation going to an end. So what would you, like to share from your heart to the heart of these aspiring novelists who listen to my podcast? They listen faithfully to the podcast. What words of wisdom?
Keep at it. Never give up. I mean, put it in perspective, and where you know that if it's a hobby, it's a hobby. Like, I try to hold everything like this, because the minute you start clenching your hand, you're going to be in trouble. And when I wrote my first book, I had gone bankrupt once. It really wasn't not my fault. But I said when I went into the book industry, I'm not going to spend any money I don't have. So I take all the money from the books and I fold it back in. And you can do it on the cheap, but just keep at it. Keep in trying to improve your work. Keep, and the most important thing is to do it, to sit down and do it. And the best advice that I can give for that is I use these, the note cards all the time. And like you could use Post-it notes. You don't have to have a whiteboard. People want to find some magic pill, whether it be exercise, whether it be anything. So they'll keep researching exercise programs. They'll have 200 exercise programs, but they don't do anything. And my brother's friend, who's a weightlifter, famously said, this guy came up and goes, "How do you get in shape?" And he goes, "You see that weight? Pick it up." That's what you have to do. So you need to sit into the chair and to get over the whole white page thing, I take 3 note cards every time before I start a book, and I put up beginning, middle, and end. And I usually don't know what the beginning is. I don't know what the end is, but I got a kind of clue at the middle, but I still write beginning, middle, end. And then I have, hey, there's 3 chapters. I'm already 3 chapters in, and you can start from there. And there are so many resources out there that it's definitely doable. And I honestly believe that if somebody like me can do it, where I did not have a clue, didn't have any idea about the publishing company, if you're willing to, humble yourself and ask for help. Don't ever go into it like, I know what I'm talking about. That's the recipe for disaster. Humble yourself, go in, ask people for help, and you can do it. You really can do it. I think that at least one story. Everybody's got one story in there. And if people have questions, look, you are such a wonderful resource. Go to you and ask. You've been there. You've gone through the walk. And people need a Sherpa. Like, whenever I hear stories about somebody that goes, I'm going to go just, climb up this mountain and I know what I'm doing. And you're like, oh man, you need a Sherpa. Don't just say you're going, because then you got to read about this huge cost of trying to rescue these people from the side of the mountain when they either ran out of oxygen or they got too cold. So that, especially your listeners, you have so many resources, Lana, that they should turn to you, and they don't need to go out there. They have the help right there. Take Lana by the hand and ask her. So that's what I would leave you with.
Thank you so much, Chris. This has been amazing. I appreciate you so much. Give us your website and the latest title that you have on Amazon.
You can go to greysonmedia.com. That's GREYSON media, media.com. And again, I have free copies of books that you can download. Get a taste of it. Feel free to ask me any questions. I answer every email personally. Why? Because I love you. No, it honestly is. I love my fans. I love my readers. I try to answer every email. And if this is coming out in August, I would have already announced it. I haven't made this announcement yet, but The Girl Who Lived 2. So the sequel to my bestseller is coming onto the launch pad. I am kind of flipping out about it because I love the book, and I didn't write it thinking that there would be a sequel, and it came to me, and I think it's going to really blow you away. I think it's, I love the story of Faith Winters. So she's a survivor. She's real tough. I always have the expression, nobody's tougher than my mother. And there are some people that go through some really hard things in life, and Faith has, but she's an overcomer. So thank you again.
Oh, thank you so much for this. And thank you for being with us today. See you next time.
Thank you for tuning into the Fiction Writers Podcast with Lana McAra, where we share tips, tricks, and ideas for fiction that is #unputdownable. Remember to visit our website at www.fictionwriterspodcast.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Fiction Writers Podcast.